Good evening. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Kettering City Council. Today's date is June 13th, 2023. Please join me in standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for your abundant blessings in surrounding us with stewardship and a supportive community in Kettering. We thank you for the ability to engage in useful work and for the honor of bearing these important responsibilities. We are grateful for your boundless love for all of us. Please continue to give us the strength and compassion with which to serve and grant the wisdom to make appropriate decisions. Help us remain humble and grateful for the opportunity to lead. Guide this council so that we may work in harmony while serving our citizens with integrity and purpose. Allow us to fulfill the responsibilities entrusted in us by our residents. Mr. Duke and Mrs. Hall have excused absences for this evening. I'd like to recognize our Miami Valley Communication Council TV operator, Mike Soproni. Mike, thank you for your assistance. Okay. Mrs. Fisher, can I call on you for a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, ma'am. I have reviewed both the council and workshop minutes for May the 23rd, as well as the May 30th joint school board meeting minutes. I do find them in order, and I move for their approval.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? Not seeing any. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mayor Lehner?
Yes. Okay. We do have one proclamation this evening. This is for a proclamation for Juneteenth Day, and it is going to be received by Gwen Owen, Chairperson of the Board of Community Relations. And at this point, I'd like to ask Ms. Duval to read it.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Juneteenth is a day dedicated to recognize, reflect, and confront the shameful legacy of systematic racism within our country, and whereas on June 19, 1865, enslaved Americans in Galveston, Texas, were informed that in accordance with a proclamation from President Abraham Lincoln, all slaves are freed from bondage, and whereas more than 2 years had passed before the news reached African Americans living in Galveston, Texas, that slavery had been abolished, and whereas the following year the first official Juneteenth celebrations took place in Texas and have continued throughout the United States, and whereas in celebration of freedom, Juneteenth is a day that should be recognized by all Americans, and whereas the Kettering community will be commemorating the city's second annual Juneteenth celebration on Monday, June 19, 2023, at the Fraze Pavilion, and this event will feature live music, food trucks, local vendors, crafts, and an inspiring keynote address. And whereas the meaning behind Juneteenth will continue to have a profound impact in the Kettering community as we work toward shared freedom for all persons. Now, therefore, Peggy Lehner, Mayor of the City of Kettering, Ohio, on behalf of City Council and the community, do hereby proclaim June 19, 2023 to be Juneteenth Day in the City of Kettering, Ohio, and encourage all citizens to commemorate the past, but to also work toward a better future for tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Gwen, if you'd like to come forward. You may certainly say a few words. Okay, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank City Council for recognizing Juneteenth for the second year in a row. On behalf of the Board of Community Relations, we are very proud of our city for doing this. We're very excited about the Juneteenth celebration that's taking place on Monday. We hope everybody comes. It's building on last year's, which was a small but very successful lunch. This year, it's from 4 to 7 p.m. at Fraze. It's free. It's a family-friendly event with food trucks and live music and an inspiring presentation, and we hope everybody comes out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to correct one thing. I did not think it was a small attendance last year at that event at all. I thought it was awesome.
Actually, it was sold out.
Yeah.
But it was only 100 people that we could fit. So this
Well,
time, we've got
for a
plenty of
first-
space for the whole
For a
community to join
first-time
us.
event, that was great, and I really encourage people to attend it
Thank you very
this
much.
year. Okay. There are no public hearings this evening. If at this point anyone wishes to speak before council with comments or new information about the legislation on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Speakers must state their name and address. Comments should be addressed to council. If you have comments that are not about the legislation on tonight's agenda, there will be an opportunity for those to be heard later in the meeting. Okay? I don't see anyone coming down. We'll move on to ordinances and second reading. There are no ordinances in second reading tonight. I will call on Mrs. Fisher for a resolution.
Your Honor, I do have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept on behalf of the Kettering Municipal Court grant funds from the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. The estimated cost is $332,600, and there is none budgeted, and it is requested by Judges Long and Dressel, and I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Does staff, Mr. Greason, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, just to tell you a little bit more about what this grant would pay for. First of all, the Kettering Municipal Court has been a recipient of this grant for several funding cycles dating back to July 2015, so your courts are attracting grant funds for their innovative practices, and the funds would cover the cost of a full-time probation officer and some vendor services that are necessary to accomplish the goals of the grant.
Okay,
Glad to answer any other questions you may have.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Greason? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a community housing impact and preservation lead abatement program grant from the Ohio Development Services Agency. It's requested by Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Robillard, would you like to address this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This grant is a new grant offered by through the state of Ohio through their what we call their CHIP program, Community Housing Impact Preservation Program, specifically for lead abatement. We're going to be using these, if granted, we will be using these funds in conjunction with our housing rehab program to offset some of the costs for lead abatement on our rehab clients, for our rehab clients. The total amount that we're going to be asking for is $90,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a Community Housing Improvement Program grant from the Ohio Development Services Agency. This is requested by the Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Mr. Robillard, do you have comments on this one?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is actually the first part of this, the first legislation that was heard, but this is our, we plan on asking the state of Ohio through their CHIP program for funding. We're hoping to receive $250,000 over a 2-year period. This money will be used for program administration and our comprehensive housing rehabilitation program. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Klepass?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
I have a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit the 2023 Annual Action Plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and execute the required certifications to enable the city to receive Community Development Block Grant funds. The estimated cost and the funds available is $1,318,578, and this is requested by the Planning and Development Department. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Robillard, one more.
Thank you, Your Honor. As a result of the city participating in the Community Development Block Grant Program, we are required to submit an annual action plan every year as part of the 3-year comprehensive plan. It just outlines what we're going to be spending our money on that we receive from HUD every year. To highlight just a few of the programs, our housing rehabilitation program, we have our housing rehab loan program, emergency home repair grant program, handicapped accessibility grant, and lead abatement grant, and also down payment assistance. Through the public service section of that grant, we'll be funding fair housing, part of the senior coordinator position, and our housing counseling services. Part of our neighborhood revitalization efforts, primarily we're going to be spending that money on acquisition and demolition. And then lastly, our economic development programs. We're going to be funding our business loan program, our child care job training program, and our micro enterprise program. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none, call the roll.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher? Mr. Kleipas?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Kettering, state of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st of 2023. The estimated cost is $571,850, and none is budgeted and is requested by the Finance Department, and I move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and this, Mr. Greason, would you like to talk about this one?
Yes, Your Honor. There are 4 different things that we're doing as part of this resolution, this supplemental appropriation. Earlier this evening, you authorized the grant from the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections that would fund the cost of a full-time probation officer's salary and benefits. We need to appropriate the funds, and so part of this, the $332,600 of this is for receiving and spending those grant funds. Additionally, we're asking for a supplemental appropriation. Really, it's the carryover budget. So we have when we have projects that aren't completed in 2022, we need to reappropriate funds in 2023 to finish them. And so there's $149,100 for finishing the 2022 ADA ramp program. Additionally, there's a supplemental appropriation of $69,200 in part out of the CDBG program funds to help cover the cost of renovations in the Planning and Development Office that will help accommodate the relocation of our senior service office, and $20,950 from our Public Arts Maintenance Fund and our 1% Public Arts General Arts Fund to help cover the cost of needed maintenance and conservation work on our many public arts assets. Be glad to answer any questions, Your Honor.
Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, call the roll.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Kleipas?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Duval?
Yes.
Mayor Laner?
Yes. Okay. We have one ordinance at first reading this evening. Mr. Kleipas.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have an ordinance in first reading this evening to provide for the table of organization, position, classification plan, compensation plan, and pay schedules and rules and regulations pertaining to conditions of work and supplemental benefits for the employees of the city of Kettering, Ohio, and to repeal ordinance number 4388-22. It's requested by the Human Resources Department. This is the first reading tonight.
Okay. Jenny Smith with Human Resources.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Cover this
This
one.
personnel ordinance affects the following: the conversion of 2 regular part-time aquatics positions to 1 full-time aquatics coordinator position in the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department. It's the reduction in the number of human resource managers from 2 to 1. The reduction in the number of human resource technicians from 3 to 1. The addition of 2 human resource coordinator positions, and the placement of the compliance and inclusion manager position into the human resources department. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Seeing none, call the roll. Thank you. First reading, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Certifications and petitions. Do we have any this evening, Ms. Kaczynski?
Your Honor, we have a certification this evening. Planning Commission is recommending approval of PC 23-013 zoning map amendment. A public hearing regarding this request will be held on Tuesday, July 11, 2023 at the Kettering City Council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. May we have the city manager's report at this point in community
Yes, Your
update?
Honor. There is much in the summertime that happens in the city of Kettering. It's a busy time and a joyful time. And one of the things that we think is best is taking your family to Adventure Reef, and we want to announce the Friday Family Splash at Adventure Reef every Friday, June 9th through July 28th, 5:30 to 8 p.m. This is for Kettering residents and pass holders. It's free for pass holders and Kettering residents, 10 and under, $2 for everyone else. So encourage you to come to Adventure Reef. I'm going to ask Mr. Bergstresser to touch on the ongoing and hopefully done, completed soon water main replacement on Dorothy Lane. Mr. Bergstresser.
Thank you. Just a quick update on the project that Montgomery County has been undertaking for better part of a year now, I think, on Dorothy Lane between Schroyer and Far Hills. This is the last phase of traffic shifts that will need to take place to complete the project. Currently this week, there are restrictions in place at Dorothy and Schroyer. If you want to go to the next slide, that shows a map of the area. So if you're traveling along Dorothy Lane, you will not be able to turn left at Schroyer in either direction, and you'll be down to 1 lane in each direction. And then if you're traveling north or south on Schroyer, you will not be able to go through the intersection or turn left onto Dorothy. It's just restricted to right turns only. This will be ongoing the rest of this week as the contractor finishes up pavement restoration from the water main work that was already completed underground. And we are being told that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and they expect the project to be fully complete by the end of next week, weather depending.
We want to make sure people are aware of our Neighborhood Pride program that honors residents and businesses who've made significant improvements to their homes and have maintained their properties impeccably year after year. If you're interested in nominating a neighbor, visit the city's website, call our volunteer office as well, and nominate your neighbor for a Neighborhood Pride Award. We also encourage our neighbors to get together, fosters relationships and neighborhood cohesion, and we do that through encouraging planning of neighborhood block parties. It's a great way to get together with your neighbors and build pride. When we have a chance and we're able, police and fire representatives stop by to say hello, and our Board of Community Relations encourages this activity by providing certificates for ice cream. If you have questions, you can contact our engineering department. Applications are now available for the Kettering Leadership Academy. Many of the people in this room at this dais are graduates, so I'm sure that you can answer questions that people may have, but they can also find those answers and apply on the ketteringoh.org website. We encourage people to apply for the Kettering Leadership Academy. I think you already heard that We're celebrating Juneteenth. City offices are going to be closed, or recognizing Juneteenth, Monday, June 19th, in observance of that national holiday, but there will be no delay in Rumpke trash service, which I think is important to announce, because people will call and ask. While city offices will be closed, the community will be gathering. You heard that earlier this evening. We'll host the second Juneteenth community celebration Monday, June 19th, 4 to 7 at the Phrase. Live music, food trucks, local vendors, and crafts for children. We want to note once again that we're undertaking a comprehensive strategic planning process and trying to engage the community extensively, seeking their input. There are 2 workshops for Spark Kettering, which is the name of our strategic planning initiative. One is Tuesday, June 20th from 6 to 7:30 at the Senior Center, the Latham Center, and the other on Thursday, June 19th at the Wilmington Stroop Library. And we encourage anyone to attend who wants to share their thoughts about the future of Kettering. As you know, our sister city relationship's important to us, and our sister cities committee has been busy organizing an event called Spasnacht. Spasnacht will take place Wednesday, June 21st from 5:30 to 9:30 at the Phrase Pavilion. If you want to see me embarrass myself playing pickleball, come to the pickleball court's grand opening. That's my humor for this evening. We're going to be celebrating the pickleball courts, which I think will be extremely popular at JF Kennedy Park on Sunday, June 25th from 1 to 3 with an official ribbon cutting, food trucks, music, and a program of events. And it's not too soon to get ready for Go Forth and think about the fireworks. They're almost here. We'll hope you will join us at Delco Park on July 4th from 6 to 10. Help us celebrate Independence Day. And Your Honor, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, if you would like to come before City Council, please come down to the podium. Each speaker will have a 5-minute limit. Speakers are asked to state their name and address. Is there anyone who would like to speak before City Council? And you're
Yes,
ready
hi.
to go. Okay.
My name is Kelly Radich, and I live at 1449 Melrose Avenue, down by the golf course. So I'm from Springfield, Ohio, originally, but when I moved to Dayton, everybody said to go to Kettering because it was like young families and middle class, and the schools were good, and so we eventually moved to Kettering, and we've built like a little community on our street. They call me the mayor of Melrose because I greet new families when they move in, and all of our kids play together. We have rock painting parties, tie-dye parties, Halloween parties. We have a ball drop on New Year's. Awesome. We've really built like a little family. And there's been a few hiccups, but you'll have that with the community, right? But my world kind of crashed this past weekend. I have 2 beautiful little daughters that are 2 and 4, and I'm the stay-at-home mom on the street, so whenever their kids need anything or something, then, they come to me too. So I've always got kids at my house, always. We like to go for walks. The next street in front of our street, heading towards the school, is Central Park, and we received notification Saturday that, that a man that moved in. Not only was he a sex offender, but he violently raped and murdered an elderly woman in 1980 and has been in prison since then and is now out. He's allowed to live there. I talked to the Montgomery County Sheriff because the crime happened so long ago, he doesn't have any housing restrictions. But he's been in prison the whole time. He's not been able to do it again. The woman that lives directly next door to him is a single woman who I don't think is staying there now because of it. Our property values are good. We've all put lots of work into our houses to make them beautiful. Who's going to want to live there? I can see this man sitting outside all the time now on his phone. And then I looked at statistics that 70% of violent offenders, and it could be wrong, that will do it again. And all the police can tell us is just to watch in case something happens. And I don't want anything to happen. My husband, I'm in recovery as well. We have drugs in our past, and he's a convicted felon. We're not allowed to own guns. And I can't feel safe in Kettering, living 4 blocks from a school and 2 blocks from a park in the different direction, because there is an actual murderer living 100 feet from us. And I just don't know if the city can do something about this or have an ordinance, or we've even asked that since then we've asked for them to patrol more in our neighborhood, and we've not seen one officer, not one. And it's a scary feeling when your only safe space is your home and you're not safe in it. And so that was my majority of what I wanted to discuss. And I know there's a few other problems that our neighborhood has been having, but this is the most important one for my family. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, and I feel for you. I don't know what can be done, but I would suggest that you meet with Chief Brotzman, see if there's anything that he could possibly offer for you. I know it's a tough issue, because people coming out of prison have to have some place to go, and no one wants them.
Right. Well, and I understand. I would think that after 40 years in prison, you should probably need a halfway house or something for a while, or something to adjust you to life. But I definitely don't think you should be allowed to live 500 feet from a school.
Do you know for a fact that he has not been in a halfway house?
I don't know if he's been in one or not. He got out in 21, so he's been out for 2 years.
That may be something that...
And I believe he's a renter, so someone's allowing him to rent there. I don't think that he owns the house. I don't see how he could. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But Chief, if you could make sure that you could get together, and probably with some of the other neighbors. Did any of you want to speak in addition? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you
Hi.
for allowing me to speak, and it's nice to meet you all. My name is Christine Lubera. I live at 1448 Melrose Avenue. I've owned that home for 10 years, and it was the first home I bought back in 2012. I'm a 37-year-old married mother of 3. I am also here on my husband's behalf, but he's at home with our kids. We are both healthcare workers. I'm a care flight nurse, and he is a respiratory therapist at Miami Valley Hospital. I'm here to kind of zoom out from what Kelly had said about this man, and discuss some of the things that's happening in our neighborhood, and some of the, it's kind of a shame that Mr. Duke isn't here, because he's our rep.
Mm-hmm.
There's at-large people, so don't think he's not the only target.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get our names and numbers.
Sure. We've watched this slide of our Hills and Dales neighborhood. And if you talk to other people that know the neighborhood, and it seems like everybody knows somebody that's been in that neighborhood, they think it's a quaint neighborhood. It's super cute. It's very affordable. It's a lot of people's first homes. People know the Butcher Block. They know that the Metro Park is right up the street, and we have enjoyed all of that. However, there was a transition where a lot of the people that had lived in Kettering for decades, they had left their house, and because of old age or, things like that, and then you have a housing crisis, and now you have all these open homes, right? And that's where I come in. I went from watching the reason that I moved to Kettering, again, was for the school district and for the amazing community. I felt safe here. But as the neighborhood has kind of filled up, we've noticed that there's been a different caliber of people. And that caliber of people is who makes your community and who makes your neighborhood. I have had a lot of issues over the years. And what you're looking at right now, as far as when you look at me, is a Kettering resident who is now checking out. This gentleman that moved is 200 feet from my fence line. He's even closer to one of my other neighbors. And it is that we're going to go because of that. I mean, we've kind of met where we're at. However, the things that chipped away, even with my awesome neighbors, is the fact that the motel that's in that neighborhood, I've had thefts at my house from it. I'm concerned that there's going to be even more people influxing because the Relax Inn just was bought by Wind Supply. I've had neighbors on my other side that I actually went to court with last year because of excessive noise issues with dirt bikes and motorcycles and dogs. I've been involved with Shelley, been involved with a lot of other different agencies to help myself with them, and there has been no resolution. And I know that we have a noise ordinance. However, when people live on 5,000 square foot lots, it seems like there should be a little bit more of mediation when it comes to how much noise you can actually make during the day. And when you have a 12-year-old who is running a dirt bike in the center of a 5,000 square foot lot's backyard, it looks like a bowl. It looks like a bowl and a fishing bowl, just going like this, right? Dirt tracks everywhere. He's grown up. He has his license now, and now we're listening to real motorcycles for hours at a time. That is allowed, and I know that technically it's their property and they're allowed to do. But however, there has to be some sort of medium or new legislation to kind of help people who are simply trying to live a peaceful life. The other thing is that we have another renter who's 2 doors down, and I've called Kettering Police about drones. Because I work in aviation, I know that everything that he is doing with his drone, aside from outright owning it, is illegal. And it's illegal on a federal level. Everything from not having it registered, not having it tagged. He is operating it inside his home. He's flying it over people. He's flying it over buildings. He's flying it in areas that he cannot fly it. And I have talked to the FAA. I've talked to them in Cincinnati, and they keep on kicking the can back to the city government. Kettering comes out. They're very nice. They say, "Oh, we can't enforce laws that don't exist." Again, they sympathize with us, but yet if they don't have any type of ruling or law about that, there's nothing they can do. And the FAA, even though I've been in contact with them, I don't think they're going to do anything about it except put it down for their statistics on how drones are increasingly becoming more prevalent in residential areas. You know, it's those types of things when you ask for help from your city. And you keep trying, you know, and just like even the other day, I was off of Dorothy Lane, and there was a woman who was clearly on drugs. She was on the ground. She was hallucinating. I was standing there at the light between Hilton and Dorothy Lane, and I was watching her. I called the non-emergency line, and I had a colorful experience. And perhaps someone should look at reviewing those tapes with a female dispatcher, not last Sunday, but the Sunday before that, when I called and tried to get her help. I've never been so disrespected by a public service worker. However, I was working on a broken foot at the time, and I had other priorities. So those types of things are the things that make people like me, and then you've got the murderer and rapist that just moved in our backyard, that are going to make people like me leave. And I don't have to leave. I have a wonderful community. This is only a small part of the people that we have that we get along with so well, that we're making lifetimes worth of memories with. But what's going on and what is passively being let in because, it's legal. Well, a choice passively gets made then to have your city kind of transform in a way that you may not like and might generate less revenue. And I wanted to bring that to your attention from my perspective, but same issues again. And also, I measured from this gentleman's door on Google Maps, as of crow flies, you're looking at 0.2 miles or 1,003 feet. The Ohio Revised Code says that these guys, regardless of what their offense is as a sex offender, they must be within 1,000 feet of a school in the state of Ohio. So if we are really pushing it this close and the Montgomery County Sheriff says, sorry, we've looked at it, there's nothing we can do, I think that this deserves a remeasure. I really do, because I'm not so sure that the pins that I dropped on Google Maps are telling the exact story and where they can measure as far as the law goes. Because he is so close to being at the line that, we really need to look at that, because there are so many families that walk that, including myself, to go to South Elementary to drop off my child. And that's all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can have some one-on-one with the chief and see if there's anything we can look at. But I also wanted to suggest that it was mentioned by the city manager that we are engaging in a strategic planning session. And this is something where we are really drawing on the community. It's not council getting together and figuring out what we want this community to look like. It's our citizens. And this is a wonderful opportunity for you to bring forth, first off, the wonderful relationship you all have as neighbors. That's really impressive. It really is. But secondly, to come up with a list of things that you think we could do better on, that's important. And if that rises to one of the highest things people care about, is their property and their homes and their neighborhood, et cetera, that is what we are going to focus on for the next 10 years or so. So this plan is, so I really would encourage you to attend one of those meetings on June 20th or June 29th. Okay, and wish you luck. Okay, thank you for taking the time to come. I let her go more than 5 minutes, but I'm not going to take that away from you. I'm just going to tell you, I am going to set the timer, though, on 5 minutes this time. Okay.
Well, luckily, they've already kind of shared
right.
what I would. My name is Mary Grant. I live at 1456 Melrose Avenue. And I did receive, well, this is one I received about 6 weeks ago. That sits on my refrigerator, and this is the one I received this weekend. I have 2 children. I'm a single parent. I live, with myself and my 2 kids, and this man moved into my backyard, literally. Our fences line up. So we have new rules that, the kids are not going to play back there unattended. And I have a son going into high school. So he's pretty irritated with me that I've kind of squashed his little world of freedom. But I just don't feel like I have enough information. And my daughter, who's going into middle school, I worry about her getting on the bus by herself. I've lived in this house since 2005. Fall apart. And I have seen such great things in my neighborhood. I have a wonderful community. Our new neighbors just moved in, this winter, and we've already been able to develop such a great relationship with them. I can count on these people, and I value that. I value Kettering. We outgrew our house, probably about 6 months after my son was born. It's tiny, but we've stayed because of our community. They love it. My kids love it. They don't want to move. But this might be the tipping point. I don't feel safe at all. I have called Kettering Police to come and do extra patrols, especially since he just moved in. I'm home all summer. I'm a teacher, so I'm off in the summer. I've not seen a single police car come down my street or any of the other streets. We've kind of been watching. We've been watching our cameras. And I would like to see more of that. I would definitely like to have the distance measured, again, to make sure that this is accurate, that he is legitimately allowed to live there. The address that he's registered at actually has 2 addresses on that property, and I'm not really sure how that works out or which one he's staying at. It's kind of a interesting piece of property that has multiple garages. It almost looks like he's living in a garage. So based on the address and the property line. But it is directly behind my house. We have a chain link fence dividing us, and I have a gate there. So, there's going to be costs that I have to incur of building a better fence. And we've never had to really experience that before. We've had nothing but great neighbors, and so I'm disappointed. And I really do hope that Kettering can do something to help us with this. So, and I will definitely plan to meet with you, if that's okay. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd love to live in your neighborhood. Anybody else? Do you want to speak? No? Okay. All right.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Please.
It saddens me to hear that about Melrose. I have a vested interest in that neighborhood. My grandfather built 1481 Melrose in 1942. I grew up at 1356 Central Park. My father built a house in 1963. I know that neighborhood like the back of my hand still, even from growing up in the 60s and 70s there. So it saddens me to hear that that's how you feel about that neighborhood, because that's my home as a child growing up. And I would assist, Jill Hall, Bruce Duke when he's back, and Jackie, the other at-large, in any way we can to try to help your problem. I sympathize with it. That was a great neighborhood when I grew up. I know it's had some rough spots over the years, but I've also seen it revitalized a little bit, because I drive through every so often just to keep tabs on my old neighborhood. And please don't give up on that neighborhood. Don't. And thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have a comment they want to make? Will you, after the meeting, and it won't be much longer, please come up and speak to Ms. Kaczynski so she can get your contact information and set up a meeting. Okay? At this point, we'd like to hear from city council members. I'd like to start with Mrs. Fisher.
It's been a busy couple weeks, and I was on vacation, and I missed a few events, but I can tell you out of the 13 that I did attend, here's my top 3. That's the way I'm going to go with it. I did get to attend the Reynolds and Reynolds Foodie Fest and be a judge for their 8 tents that they had with employees making up the food. Fantastic event. That's a great employer who does great things with their employees. Second, I was in Springfield today with the Miami Valley Military Affairs Association doing a tour of the international, that's terrible, I just lost my train of thought. Looking at the ISR missions as well as what they do for our international guards. Learned some new things. I've worked at the base, and so I know a lot about intel and drones and things like that. But I did learn a lot of things that they're doing in Ohio and some things that they're actually doing across our United States that are very unique and that are not replicated in other states. Last but not least, I got to visit 2 of the schools yesterday. I went over to Greenmont School. They are serving lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. Full-on school lunch plus. Kids get a choice. Fantastic. I saw kids biking there. I saw parents driving kids there. I saw kids walking there. Free lunches, and they're serving at least about 50 kids per day. Then popped over to Indian Riffle. They're serving about 40 kids. That's over at the trails of Oak Creek. Again, in walkable distance for a lot of those children. They're serving from 12:30 to 1:30. So my reason for bringing this up is if you have children and they need fed, take them to one of those 2 places. It's unfortunate they can't walk to your street, but if you have a stay-at-home mom and wants to dump kids in a car and drive them to have the cheese pizza up at Greenmont, the kids are freaking out over the cheese pizza. They love the cafeteria pizzas. But it's a great way for kids to still exchange. Thanks to the police department, some of the SROs were there. It was neat to see some of the kids as they were going in line, calling them out by name and waving to the officers. And so very much appreciate all those extra people and the extra hands that are making sure kids get fed over the summer. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Very good.
Pass.
As the manager mentioned tonight, and now Mrs. Fisher kind of said the same thing, a lot's been going on in the last 2-3 weeks as summer kicks off in Kettering. There's lots of things to do. I want to mention a couple events that was involved with where we had some pretty good crowds that gathered in Kettering. One was the annual block party on the 31st over at Lincoln Park and at the Frays. once again, the place was packed. Something new this year, the hot dogs were gone before the dilly bars, but the dilly bars were gone about the time that the concert started. No, great event. And then I'm only going to mention one other thing tonight. Saturday was the annual fishing derby. Both Mr. Scott and I worked there as part of Dorwood Optimist, but it's also that event includes the Kettering Police Department has a crew that's really involved with kids fishing. I didn't have found out about that on Saturday. And then also our Parks Department supports that event. It was reported that there was close to 700 people that were there between kids fishing, which was about 300, I think, and adults that brought those kids, and then the amount of volunteers that it took to run that event. So it was a great event, big crowds coming to town for kicking off the summer. Last I'll mention is our words of wisdom tonight, which you always.
I wonder if that'll.
When you choose a local small business products and services, you choose to support your neighbor, which in turn helps make our community a better, stronger place to live. So shop Kettering. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kleepass.
Since Mr. Kleepass told my thunder about the fishing derby, which was a great event, I need to add one comment to Mr.
Can you turn your mic on?
About the pickleball. You will not embarrass yourself being that you're my teammate. And on a more serious note, driving around Kettering the last few weeks, especially on Wilmington Pike, Woodman area, the large amount of business construction that's going on is impressive to the city. I counted 8 different projects just driving around the other day. So Kettering is on the move on the business side. It's nice to see some of these businesses have been empty for years or torn down and being rebuilt. And it's good for the city and adds to what Tony said about shop and buy Kettering. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duval.
It's only been mentioned about 3 different times tonight, so I'm going to mention it again. Come out to Juneteenth on Monday, June 19th at the Phrase. You can shop local while you're there at all the local vendors and food booths. Food trucks. We're very excited. And I'm personally excited the bookmobile will be there. I think that's fun. I hope the rain holds off for both Juneteenth and Spasnak 2 nights later. So we'll see. I'm optimistic, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think most things have been pretty well covered here tonight. I have to have a shout out for both the Block Party, the Fishing Derby, and Spasnak. These are all events that just make our community very special, and we'd like to make it perfect. So even though we're celebrating great things, we'd like to make it perfect. I would like to just mention that Mrs. Fisher and I will be leaving next week to go to Austria, to our sister city, Steyr, Austria. We're celebrating 50 years of friendship with the city of Steyr. It's a community very similar to ours. And we're going to be presenting them with a Lego model of our government center right here. And I'm sorry we didn't seem to get pictures of it before we sent it off, but if I'll take one when I'm in Steyr. It was pretty neat. It was made by one of our staff members. Mr. Greason, are you trying to signal that you wanted to say something?
When you're done, ma'am.
Oh, okay, all right. Basically, I'm done, so I'll turn it over to you.
Your Honor, I forgot something, and that is due to a lack of legislation that we need to pass or business we need to conduct on June 27th, we will not be holding a city council meeting. So
I thought that's what you were going to say.
ma'am.
So thank you. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Being no further business to come before City Council, our next regularly scheduled City Council meeting will be July 11th. Okay, thanks. Had to add an extra 2 weeks in there. All right, thank you. Meeting's adjourned.